We are honored to have in our midst today Mr. Sam Petroda, often known as the father of Indian telecom revolution, and our chief guest this morning. The man who has been part of India's fantastic journey right from the very beginning is today very thoughtful about where the Indian telecom is, and therefore has new ideas and thoughts that can once again get India's telecom bandwagon on the move. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Sam Petroda to deliver his keynote. I must also inform the August gathering here that Mr. Petroda has specifically said that he would like to take questions after his speech. So if there are any questions that people have, we will have our team members circulating and taking them. Mr. Petroda.
Mr. Pradeep Gupta, distinguished members of the telecom community, I see all my friends here, Mr. Upadhyay, formal secretary, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed a special privilege for me to be here with you. This gives me a chance to reconnect and meet some old friends. So thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Gupta. I have been in telephone business now for about 50 years. Seems like yesterday. My first job in telecom was in 1964. And I have seen it go from electromechanical to electronics to digital to internet to everything. Some of it was visible and some of it was completely unpredictable. No one ever thought that India would ever have 900 million phones by 2014. It has been a miracle, and the journey has been very interesting, unpredictable, daunting, exhausting at times, but definitely very challenging. India has come a long way in telecom. And now when you talk about bring smiling back or bring back smile, it's difficult to really translate this. I remember a few days ago, a gentleman complained to me that nothing is going well in this country. I said, what is happening? He said, everything is a disaster. He said, my phone doesn't work, I get drop calls, I want to change my phone, and he just went on and on. I said, look, don't forget 20 years ago, you had to wait for 10 years to get telephone. At least you have a phone. It works 90% of the time. Your life has changed. Your children are going to better university. Everything is good and you are complaining. I find that today in India the mood is such that in spite of the fact everything has improved, people don't feel good. And I think telecom industry is not any different. So let me take you through the journey going forward as I see it. First, we must recognize and compliment all telecom community for a great job done in the last 20 years. 20 years ago or 25 years ago, almost 30 years ago in 1981, that's longer than 30. When I entered telecom scene in India, we had less than 2 million phones. It used to take 15 years to get telephone connection. In just short span of 20 years, we have 900 million phones. And we are a nation of a connected billion. In the process, lots of people have contributed. young talent, policymakers, industry, entrepreneurs, domain experts, software people, hardware people, manufacturing, ancillary industry, foreign partners, lot of foreign investments. All of these things had to click to really get us where we are. Nowhere in the world telecom industry had a very smooth journey. Everywhere there has been ups and downs. Our industry for a long time focused on increasing number of subscribers because their valuations were based on number of subscribers. More subscribers you have, better market cap, better ability to borrow, better deployment of equipment, and all of that. Now we have reached plateau. 900 million phones is a pretty good number. Maybe you increase few hundred million more, but you're not going to have the kind of ramping you had for a long time. So you'll have to recognize that the first phase of the telecom revolution is ending. And if you don't change your mindset for the second phase of the telecom revolution, you're not going to go anywhere. So if you want to bring Smile back, you got to think of the second phase of telecom revolution. Smile is not coming back by sticking on to the first phase of telecom revolution. So don't expect number of subscribers to again go up from 900 million to 1.8 billion. Don't expect market caps coming only out of numbers of subscribers. You got to now have a broader view of the telecom industry. Telecom industry has changed. It is no longer about telephones. It's about data, video, cable TV, convergence, and it's about three screens. It's about screen on telephone, screen on laptop, and screen on television. And it's about seamless connectivity in all of these areas. So don't think of telephone as the only means to communicate. And when you begin to think in this new paradigm, you will see many more opportunities, and then only Smile can come back to telecom industry. Internet and web has changed everything in the world. And it is going to change a lot more than we realize. But I don't think we begin to see the implication of it. To me, this is the biggest revolution in the history of mankind, bigger than anything I have ever seen. I tell my Western friends in US that when World War II ended, we started with Marshall Plan. We had sense of urgency to build Europe, Japan. Internet was a bigger bomb than we ever thought. It has destroyed everything that we knew, but we just don't recognize it. Yesterday, I gave a keynote speech in the evening on future of India. And I said future of India really depends on three things. One, technology, web, biotech, nanotech, materials, alternate energy. Two, young talent. And when I say young talent, I'm talking about 20-year-old and not 40-year-old. And three, massive reforms. Reforms in education, reforms in government, reforms in judiciary, reforms in political system, reforms in financial system, you name it. If you don't do these three things properly in the next decade, you're not going to change the face of this country. When I see debate on Indian television today, I feel sorry for all of us. It is pathetic. Most of the people don't know what they are talking about. They have no idea of the implication of potential technology we have and the potential talent we have. And everyone wants to go back to what it was. And if telecom industry also wants to go back to what it was, it's just not happening. In India today, the challenges remain exactly same. Disparity between rich and poor, urban, rural, educated, uneducated. Demography, 550 million young below age of 25. What do we do with them? How do we create 10, 15 million new jobs? How do we give them skill? How do we create future for them is the real challenge. And third, development. What kind of development we want in India? We have thought through many of these things, but somehow the message has not gone out to public. Because public is only interested in cricket, Bollywood, and gossip. And as a result, the real developmental message doesn't reach out to people. And in all of these things, telecom of the future is the platform. There are two platforms in India that I believe would change the face of this country. One is the telecom IT web platform, and I'll talk a little bit about it in a minute, and two, biotech platform. Like telecom, biotech is also pervasive. Telecom today is no longer a vertical. It is pervasive. There is telecom in everything we do. Telecom will change education. Telecom will change health industry. Telecom will change governance. Telecom will change judiciary. And telecom and IT will change everything, including agriculture. So how do we really create telecom platform of the future, which in turn will bring smile back to telecom industry? Let me tell you what we have been trying to do for last 5 years. First, right after 2004, some of us as part of the National Advisory Council, headed by Sonia Gandhi, realized that the biggest impact could come in this country out of right to information. We said we must introduce right to information, which would change and empower people. A lot of people were against it, saying this is opening Pandora's box. So against all the odds, we introduced right to information. We have right to information, but we don't have information. So when you ask for information, information is not available. It's locked up in Nadawali file. So our job then was to really create public information infrastructure to really bring information in the hands of people and essentially democratize information. Now these things don't happen overnight. These things take a lot of time. If telecom took 25 years, democratization of information will also take perhaps 20 years. So we started with the idea of creating knowledge network, a network to connect 1,500 nodes with 40 gigabit bandwidth at the cost of about $2 billion. That network is already built, working, operational. 1,100 nodes are already connected. Nobody knows how to use it. Because when you give somebody 40 gigabit bandwidth, what do? I have a friend who uses 40 gigabit bandwidth 24 hours a day between Stanford and CERN. One guy, physicist. You need that kind of intellect to be able to use the bandwidth capacity. We are beginning to learn to use this bandwidth. In addition, we are creating another network called NOFN to connect 250,000 panchayats to local government at the cost of about 7 billion. Unfortunately, we have had a lot of delays, partly because of old processes, old mindset. How do you write a tender? Who opens a tender? All these old processes have really locked us up. And what was supposed to happen a year and a half ago hasn't happened yet. And if we don't change that, none of these technologies are going to help us. When that network is built, I'm told now it will take another 18 months, you will have broadband connectivity to everywhere in India. Because broadband connectivity is not about 3G or 4G. It is about fiber pipes. If you don't have the backhaul, what do you do with 3G? And very few people understand that 3G is just the last mile. Earlier you get to big, thick pipe, better off you are. In addition to this, we are creating platforms. One is ID platform that Nandan Nilekani is working on. UID, where every human being will have a unique identification number with facial, fingerprints, iris. That in turn would be linked into a variety of applications, including phone number, bank account, ability to buy gas tank, food distribution, all of that. Then we are creating platform for GIS. So like every person can be tagged, every physical asset can be tagged. Then all the applications, driver's license, passport, income tax, everything. And there are about 30 major applications where we have today 10,000 software people working on in the government. Data centers, cyber security, payment platform, procurement platform. When all of these platforms are designed properly, you will have ability to re-engineer government. Then you will have real information at hand. Today, for example, we have 32 million court cases. We are computerizing 32 million court cases. It takes 15 years to get justice. You go to any of the courts, the files are stacked up 15 feet. You can't find any file, and you wonder why it takes a long time to get justice. We computerized Delhi court, 3 or 4 rooms as big as this room could be filed in a small little box like this. That is the future of telecom. We are computerizing all of the prisons. We are computerizing all of the police stations. This in turn will create new discipline. It will bring openness, accountability, transparency, and a lot of our old systems will have to be transformed. But this requires change in mindset. It requires different kind of thinking about telecom, IT, software. When all of these platforms are designed, which I believe another 2-3 years, you need a lot of young talent in the government. I have found, and I work with a lot of 20-year-old kids, a 20-year-old kid is willing to accept something totally new. You give it to 40-year-old, he has some doubts. You give it to 50, can never be done. They don't even start. They are totally afraid. I wanted to set up Google Hangout. This was about a year ago. And we gave it to one expert. And we gave it to a 22-year-old kid who had never done it. And I said, Vikas, we need to get this done in 4 days. He said, yes, sir. Gave it to the senior guy. He said, I need 2 months to plan. And Vikas got it done in 4 days. Yeah. This is the technology of the young. I have never seen any young kid read instruction manual. You give them any equipment, they just start pushing buttons and they know exactly how it works. You give it to an older fellow, first things he has to do is read instruction manual. I always give this example. I have a 3-year-old granddaughter who lives in San Francisco. And she Skypes me every day. Every day. And then she would say, Dada, you are frozen because bandwidth is not enough. 3-year-old. It's crazy. It's a different world. We don't recognize that a lot of us are basically obsolete. I think internet has changed everything, and I keep saying this. Take, for example, education. Yesterday when I gave a keynote speech, just before my speech, there was a big discussion on how to transform education and, improve this, improve that, need more teachers training, and my answer was, it's all bogus. Who decided it should take 4 years to get a degree? Why are we all taking 4 years to get a degree? Why should we take 4 years to get a degree? Do I really need a teacher? Student-teacher ratio of 10:1 is the mindset of the past. I don't need teacher to create content or deliver content, because content is already created by best of the best, and it can be delivered anytime, anywhere. But I need teacher to be a mentor. But none of the teachers today are trained to be mentors. So the education model will have to change. If I had a kid today, I would never send that kid to college or school, because there is a lot more to learn on your own. All you need is really motivation, time, and content to learn. You really don't need the kind of institutions we have today. If I was to build a university of tomorrow, it's not going to look like university of today. It cannot have library, campus, football field. You don't need all of that stuff. It's obsolete. If I was to build a hospital today, it's not going to look like a hospital of today, with 5-star beds and hospital with fancy rooms, because a lot of my health record would be on cell phone. I would be able to consult doctor from anywhere in the world right today, and I will have many more options. Every institution today needs re-examination. In fact, I go as far as saying everything we do today is essentially obsolete. How do we get admission in school? Do we really need 4 copies of the same certificate, especially with a stamp from a gazetted officer? You don't need any of this crap. Until we begin to realize the potential of new world of telecom, IT, information, we will not really understand the second phase of telecom revolution. Second phase of telecom revolution is all about data, video, voice, as I said earlier. Can you imagine in India 1 billion people, where 500 million are setting up a Skype call with another 500 million in the evening to chat with their family? What kind of traffic that will generate? Have we designed our networks to handle that kind of traffic? Do we understand the impact of video calls on Indian network? I think those are the kind of questions we need to really raise. I am convinced that we are in the process of redesigning a nation. It's happening underneath in a very different way, while people are debating all kinds of useless stuff. India is committed to democratizing information. When President Obama came here, he and I had half an hour to talk about this, and he was absolutely amazed. He said, "How do you think in this kind of scale?" And my answer was, we have no options. We are a country of 1.2 billion. We have to think differently. Somebody has to. And as a result of his visit, we decided to launch a joint program where we took 10 people from White House, 10 from our team, and created open government platform. Indian government did not want to share data. Planning Commission said, this is our data. And we said, no, this is public data. This is not your data. Took us 9 months to convince Indian government, by being in the government, in Prime Minister's office saying data should be opened up. And everybody said, it's a great idea, we'll open data, but we need to set up a committee to open data. That means 9 months delay. Finally, today we have 5,000 data sets from government in public domain. But I'm sure all of our telecom experts sitting here have never seen open government platform of Government of India. But that's the way we are. I gave talks to a lot of vice chancellors of universities who complain about education, and I asked them, have you ever read National Knowledge Commission report? No. Now that report is written for you, and you haven't read. But everybody knows what the problems are. In India, you do not need talent to identify problems. Very few people recognize that. Nor do you need talent to really identify solutions. You really need courage to go out, get it done against all the odds. Bureaucracy is given, corruption is given, political inefficiency is given. How do you get it done? I think telecom is in that mold today. So don't expect number of subscribers to go up substantially. Of course, we have had problems like Mr. Gupta said. Some people have paid a lot of money for the spectrum. But this happened in Europe as well. Don't forget. Vodafones of the world paid 32 billion, for 2G at one time. And they recover. So we will recover. Spectrum auction has been a big issue. People say scam, no scam. I don't know the facts. I don't think anybody really understands the facts. But the fact still remains that since spectrum was sold at higher price, industry has a lot of burden and the cost has to go up. Somebody has to pay and then come back here. I just don't get it. If we don't think in those terms, we will keep complaining. To bring Smile back, we will have to think very differently. We'll have to think of the future. We'll have to take risk. We'll have to go beyond phase 1 of the telecom revolution. We'll have to turn it over to younger generation. We will need new applications, and we'll have to redefine telecom as an industry. Ultimately, telecom is here to stay. Telecom is not going away anywhere. But telecom is definitely not here to stay in the old form. Telecom is here to stay in the new form. And that would require people in 20s and 30s. Last month, I met an 11-year-old kid in my office from Bangalore. I walked into my office, and there was an 11-year-old boy sitting there with his father, television cameras and reporters and all that. And I didn't know what it was. So I walk in my office and I say, what is this? They said, well, this young man has gotten a prize. And part of the prize was that he will get to meet you. I said, that's interesting. So I asked him, I said, what do you do? And very good-looking young kid, beautiful, alert, sober. So he said, I'm into parallel processing. And I was puzzled. I said, what is this guy saying? Since I know a little bit about parallel processing, I thought, let's check him out. So I started asking him questions. And I must tell you that that 11-year-old kid talked like a PhD in computer science. It was the brain of a 50-year-old in 11-year-old body. Ordinary guy, little kid, and he made so much sense. I was literally frightened. And his father said, Mr. Pitroda, I need your advice. What should I do as a father? I said, stay away from him. If you give him any advice, you'll mess him up. Okay? Don't underestimate the talent of the young. So I asked him, I said, how did you learn all this? He said, on the internet. On his own. No teacher, nobody, nothing. So then he asked me, he said, what advice do you have for me? I said, stay away from girls. We are such a good-looking kid. You know. But I tell you, it is amazing how these young kids think. And we just don't appreciate. You know. 2 years ago, we decided to find the best hacker in India. And to our surprise, the best hacker came from Bihar. 15-year-old kid whose father is a peon. Can you believe that? We invited him to Delhi and we asked him, how much money you want? And he could think of only 2,000 or 3,000 rupees a month. He thought that was a good salary for a 15-year-old boy. I told him, you can get probably 100 times more and it will be worth every rupee of it. So there is talent in Bihar, there is talent in Bangalore, there is talent everywhere. There is talent in poor, but we must encourage this generation to redesign India. And the smile can only come back to telecom when you really bring these young people into the mainstream, change our mindset. It's not going to happen from people like us. I am a great believer in India only because of young talent and because of potential in technology, not just IT. Once again, I want to repeat, but similarly, biotech platform, nanotech, alternate energy, stem cell research. And I also tell these young people that you will live to be 200 years. Your lifespan is not 80 or 90. Your lifespan is a couple of 100 years. So get ready for it. You got to think in those terms. When you begin to think in those terms, you really see a lot of opportunities in telecom. So finally, once again, Mr. Gupta, thank you for the opportunity. And I want to remind all of us that we can indeed bring smile back. But we cannot bring smile back by looking at short term. We got to look at long term. We got to redefine telecom. We got to relook at new platforms. And we got to interconnect and recognize that telecom is pervasive. It is not about telephone. It is about lifestyle management. So if we manage lifestyle with new tools, we will bring smile back to telecom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pitroda, for such an encouraging and motivating address. I'm sure it will help all of us as the industry moves into the next phase of India's of the telecom expansion. Any questions? Oh, there are quite a few hands coming up. We'll take some of them because Mr. Pitroda is running short of time. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I'm Satyen Gupta. And you have mentioned about, sir, this backhaul on optic fiber, and that is correct, and everyone knows. And on the access side, sir, we have done on mobile side a great job, as you have mentioned. But then, sir, there is a saying that voice and data can be mobile, but video will be fixed. The meaning is that we have about 250 million households in the country. So each one will need at least a fixed connection. Unfortunately,
Video could be mobile also. FaceTime is mobile.
Yeah, but
I mean, I have my Skype on my cell phone.
yeah, but my question is, sir, that how to get these fixed networks also as a part of the revolution, which is happening in other countries. Unfortunately, in India, the fixed network is going down, and everyone is talking about mobile. And that is why the mobile revolution has actually happened. So any solutions, or at least each home should get a fixed connection. That is what I thought.
Ultimately, if I had an option, I would have fiber to every home. Optical fiber. That's what I would like. Okay?
Sir, N.K. Goyal, you know me from CMI. I want to dig into your mind because you spoke in the last about hacker from Bihar. Nowadays, my association is involved in training cybersecurity, etc. to university. Sir, how to do the innovations or attract young people to do the innovation in cybersecurity in a positive way?
Just get young people and give them money and turn them loose. There's no shortcut. Trust them. See, a lot of our industry does not spend money on R&D. That's the reason you don't have Facebook in India. That's why you don't have WhatsApp in India. If top 5 IT telecom industries decided that each one is putting in 200 crores or 500 crores, give 2,500 crore to 500 young kids and don't ask any questions for 5 years. You will see a lot of applications. Nobody wants to do that.
Sir, this is Ved Prakash Singh from CPA Global India Private Limited. Sir, my question is about the second phase of revolution, telecom revolution. How important is the telecom equipment manufacturing in India?
Very important. See, when we started CDOT, our main thrust was local manufacturing, Indian model of development, local ancillary industry, Indian talent. Because a country of 1.2 billion cannot leave all of this to import. Unfortunately, we started well when we had our own production of racks and Macs and all that. And then when mobile came, operators thought it was very easy to just import lock, stock and barrel because they got along with it funding. So they went abroad. In the process, local industry got killed. So you have no local electronic industry at all. Today we import, I am told, roughly $100 billion worth of electronics hardware a year. And we do about $120 billion worth of software export a year. If we are not careful, I am told that by 2020, import of electronic hardware would go up to 400 billion, which will be more than the bill for the petrochemicals. So we have to have local production. But we need local foundry, we need local fabless design shops, we need local industry willing to buy local product, we need Defense Department to be able to buy local product, but the Indian systems doesn't recognize local industry. Because there'll be one line in the government purchase which says you must have sold 250,000 of whatever. Then you are killed. Our policies are not geared towards encouraging local industry. I don't know why. We have tried, have not been successful. Nobody pays attention. We must build local industry. There is no way out. So now we had a committee set up with Dr. Krishnamurthy and I headed to really create 2 foundries in India. Cabinet approval has been obtained. We'll be announcing it very soon. Though we know that financially it doesn't make sense to have local foundry. But strategically it makes a lot of sense to have local foundry. So when we announce, there'll be criticism. Say, oh, these guys don't know what they are talking about. In India, whatever you do, there is criticism. If you do something, somebody will criticize. So when there is a lot of criticism, I feel good that you are doing something. Yeah. Because the best way to avoid criticism is not to do anything. Yeah. Idea is to really create ecosystem for local production. And we need to do that in next 5-7 years. Okay. Agree?
Mr. Pitroda, my name is Sanjeev Mahajan. Thank you for a very, very inspirational speech. It is well known in this country that business happens in spite of the government, or regardless of what happens. However, we are coming to a situation in the next few months where there is the expectation that there could be a change in the political setup in our nation. What do you think is going to be the impact of that on the future of the telecom industry, and will we smile in spite of that change?
I have no idea. I don't have crystal ball. I am not good at that. But I must tell you, next 10 years will decide what kind of a nation we want to build. I am biased. Okay? I have a different view of India. My view of India is inclusion, democracy, collective leadership, the dream that founding fathers had of the idea of India is very different from the idea of India people are talking about today. I do not subscribe to the idea of India that I see on television today. Maybe I'm old man. Okay. My idea of India is inclusive. My idea of India is India for everybody. My idea of India is India with respect. Total democracy. We'll muddle our way through. I don't need India like that. We were talking with Professor, this morning I had a breakfast with David, who is a professor in Hong Kong University, and I said, my idea of India is very different. Okay. I don't want a leadership that is going to give upper hand to business. That's not what India is about. India is not about GDP, GNP, per capita income. India is not about just growth. India is about inclusive growth. So don't get too excited if only business benefits. Okay? So I have a very different view of the world. Okay? And you don't have to agree with my view.
Yeah. Mr. Sam Petra, this is Anil Prakash.
Yes, sir.
Quickly on that, I think just to take on that, if we can connect CSR to innovation R&D, now it is mandate, 2% of the, so that is the, I think if you can pursue with that to get linked with CSR. Number two, we know each other for almost like 25 years now. We've been sitting on the 94, the Honolulu beach in Bermuda Shorts and discussing about, I encourage that 20 years the fire in Valley is still continuing. But हमारे घर में जो आग लगी वो अपने आशियाने से लगी है. The problem is we pull the leg. We Indians, when we go L1 Raj, our own, we beat that, but we put them down by this way or that. So that is the problem. Indian industry is not growing because someone is trying to grow up, otherwise pull the leg back. So it is not that the government, it is basically we people. I think we have to rise up.
See, in India it is fashionable to blame government. Okay? Somebody asked me a few months ago about corruption. I said, what's your view on corruption? I said, look, it is not that this government is corrupt or that government is corrupt or this company is corrupt or that company is corrupt. Everybody is corrupt. Okay? If business is not willing to pay, who will take? But that doesn't mean business is to be blamed only. But I said, I can tell you, I am not corrupt. Guaranteed 100%. But I cannot say the same thing about my wife. And my wife saw this on TV and she just got really mad. She said, how dare you say that? I said, I don't know. Okay? The message was very different. Message was, I can take responsibility for myself. I cannot take responsibility for my children also. If each one of us decided to take responsibility for ourselves, it will be a different country. But everybody says, no, you change, I'm not going to change. How is that possible? I think everybody here is very quick to blame everybody else. Immediate response was the business has succeeded in spite of the government. Not true, my friend. Okay? Business cannot succeed in spite of the government. They all go hand in hand. Okay? But this is the kind of conversation people have here. Saying, I'm great, everybody else is bad. When I hear all the political conversation today, it is all about blaming everybody else. Saying, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, this fellow is bad, that fellow is bad, that fellow is really bad. Come on, give me a break. Okay? And people love it. People, start clapping. And I feel sorry. Sometimes you wonder whether you are from this planet. But that's the way it is. Okay?
So one last question.
Yes, sir.
Please.
Where are you?
A quick short question, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Hello, sir. I am Pavan Yadav. Firstly, thanks a lot for such a motivating speech. And it was really heartening to see, that people think in this way. And it literally brought tears in the eyes. And you mentioned that the way to change is to bring in young talent. Now, it's known that it's easier to get a new idea into mind than to take the old ones out. People at the top, they really think very well. But when it comes to the execution level in the government, it gets delayed because of processes, etc., etc. Now we are talking that we get 20 years old in corporate world. How do we get 20-year-old to be bureaucrats? 20-year-old in Department of Telecommunication, 20-year-olds in BSNL, those who can think and who can execute.
Great question. Okay. It's a very difficult thing to do in Indian setup. So I'll tell you what some of us are trying to do. I have an office as advisor to the Prime Minister with the rank of a cabinet minister. And my entire staff is 20-year-old. I have nobody else. Okay. And it works. So we have another gentleman in Planning Commission, Arun Maira. Same thing. Senior man, 20-year-old kids. That's the kind of structure we need. Very flat organization. But we don't do that. I remember in 1986 or 84, we had set up a group to celebrate 40 years of India's independence. I was in the group with Amitabh Bachchan and few others in Rajiv Gandhi's time. So I told Rajiv then that, look, before we set up this group, I want to be involved in structuring. So he said, fine. In the process, I went on a trip for 2 weeks. When I came back, we already had hired 40 people. So Bob Murari was the secretary. So I went to Bob Murari. I said, what happened, Bob? He said, sir, they have appointed secretary. So I had to appoint 3 joint secretaries. So 3 joint secretaries to appoint, each 4 directors. And up to peon, one guy, automatically 40 people came with him. That's the kind of mindset we have. Okay? So you need flat organizations with one senior fellow, lot of young people, but it's a long way, I just did a study of Prasar Bharati. This is Indian television, Doordarshan, and All India Radio. We have some 30,000 engineers or some big number. Average age is 50. They're all about to retire. And I said, look, how can you have technology if you don't have 20-year-old in the organization? They said, sir, we have freeze. We can't hire anybody for last 15 years. Then you pay for it. So we have this problem in HR policy. In government, human resource is the biggest problem. Prime Minister has to get involved in hiring everybody. It's just humanly not possible. So if there are 2 reforms one could make in government immediately, one is HR policy, which should be all computerized, should be like corporate world, and financial flexibility. Government structure will change. But nobody wants to do that because they like to control it. So they can put their own people in there. So it's a problem. But you got to address it. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.